folks, welcome to our TED Talk. Today we'll be sharing the little known history of Hawaii's connection to Martin Luther King Jr. and the Civil Rights Movement.
This is the story of the Hawaiian Leis for civil rights.
On March 7, 1965, Martin Luther King Jr. led the first Civil Rights March in Selma, Alabama. The more than 3,000 peaceful demonstrators were attempting to march to the state capitol building in Montgomery.
To be detrimental to your safety to continue this march, and I'm saying that this is an unlawful assembly. You are to disperse, your orders to disperse, go home or go to your church. This march will not continue.
State troopers and county posse men attacked the unarmed marchers with billy clubs and tear gas after they passed over the county line. As the demonstrators were brutalized trying to cross the Edmund Pettus Bridge, the day would come to be known as Bloody Sunday.
George Wallace, for the wet ropes that bruise the muscles, for the bullwhips that cut the flesh, for the clubs that broke the bones, and for the tear gas that seared the eyes and the nose and the nostrils and the lungs and choked people into insensibility. This is not the American way.
2 weeks later in Alabama, on March 21, 1965, Dr. King, John Lewis, and other civil rights demonstrators attempt a third historic march from Selma to Montgomery. In photos of the 54-mile march, the demonstrators can be seen wearing an iconic Hawaiian flower garland. Hawaii's participants in the march had brought flower leis that they draped on King's neck and on others in his group, leaving a stamp of aloha.
It's a jarring, out-of-place image of fragile, flowery optimism amidst a backdrop of intimidation, violence, and federalized troops. But why were they wearing leis at a civil rights march in the Deep South?
A year prior, King had given a lecture in Hawaii where he met Reverend Abraham Akaka, a Hawaiian Chinese pastor at the Kauai Hau Church in Honolulu. Reverend Akaka was known to give his sermons in both Hawaiian and English.
Aka e ho'okele no na ia mākou i ka ino, no ka mea, no ke au puni, a me ka mana, a me ka ho'onani ia maulu aku. Amen.
It was Reverend Akaka that sent King and his followers the flower leis in an expression of pure aloha. For the demonstrators, the flowers provided a stark contrast to the weight of the moment and served as a symbolic connection of the civil rights struggle around the U.S.
Reverend Abram Akaka, pastor of Kauai'au Church, shared a special bond with Dr. King. As both were legendary social justice leaders in their communities and respected churches of the Protestant faith.
E ku'u kai kaina e Martin Luther King. Ia oe e lawe anei ka mana'o lana I ka po'e hune. E lava mai oe I nā kanaka I eha, I pa'ahau I ka walohia. E ola o kou I ka mākou pule, na ka mo'olelo o kou aina e ho'ohanohano ia oe. E ola I ke akua.
Dr. King visited Hawaii several times before his third march on Selma. On February 19, 1964, King delivered a speech to UH Manoa students, faculty, staff, and community members. The subject was about progress toward desegregation. About 1,000 people attended King's lecture, which was part of Civil Rights Week. The law can't keep a person from hating me, but it can keep him from lynching me. I believe that non-violent action is a powerful weapon, a calm but unwavering force. We have come a long, long way, but we have a long way to go before the problem is solved. I believe that deep down within our nation, in spite of our difficulties, there is a desire to move toward integration.
Aloha, Dr. King. My name is Tommy Neffler, and I'm a reporter for the Honolulu Star Bulletin. Sir, can I ask why, especially after the horrific event in Selma, which everybody call now is Bloody Sunday, why are you and your group returning to there to march?
When word came to news reporter Tommy Nafler that a contingent from Hawaii planned to join the third march in Selma, Tommy knew she wanted to chronicle the event.
Tommy Nafler was already interested in civil rights and had many Hawaii contacts within the movement. A few days after Dr. King's appearance at UH Manoa, Tommy's contacts called her to leave for Selma. Her editor and publisher at the newspaper agreed to send her to Alabama, and after the requisite kama'aina chore of borrowing a warm coat, Tommy was off.
Right from the start, being in the highly charged environment was an emotional experience. Most knew what discrimination was. You saw it all in their faces. Part of the intensity of the march was the fear. There had been killings. You could just sense the negative feelings. The other part of the intensity was this coming together. This group with one purpose. That was very, very strong.
The giving of the lei by Reverend Akaka was meant as a gesture to send a message of hope. And it was hope in the wake of the previous weeks of upheaval that Dr. King and the protesters had endured. Previously, on September 17, 1959, Dr. King addressed the first special session of the Hawaii State Legislature. And when he spoke before the House of Representatives, Dr. King said he found Hawaii to be a hopeful place.
In another old speech in Hawaii, Dr. King once told us,
You can never know what it means to those of us caught for the moment in the tragic and often dark midnight of man's inhumanity to man. To come to a place where we see the glowing daybreak of freedom and dignity and racial justice.
Leia ka o ka lipo ka lau o ka nahe leia puala o nau nau ka ai nai. Leia ka vehi ka hie ka hano hano e ae leia ka lei pili pili o ke alohai. Leia ka o ka lipo ka lau o ka nahe leia puala o nau nau ka ai nai. Leia ka vehi ka hie ka hano hano e ae leia ka lei pili pili o ke alohai. Leia ka o ka lipo ka lau o ka nae leia puala o nau nau ka ai nai. Leia ka vehi ka hie ka hano hano e ae leia ka lei pili pili o ke alohai. Aua leia ai.